Hi, this is the AI Storyteller. I'm Mark. In this issue, we will delve into the first installment of the Rabbit tetralogy by American author John Updike, titled Rabbit, Run. John Updike achieved nearly every accolade the American literary scene could offer. Just within the Rabbit tetralogy, he claimed 2 Pulitzer Prizes, the National Book Critics Circle Award and the National Book Award. Beyond the tetralogy, he also received 2 O. Henry Awards, 2 more National Book Critics Circle Awards, and a Faulkner Award. What's truly remarkable about Updike is his consistent output over more than 50 years. Aside from a few wildly popular titles, he never experienced a slump and never wrote a book that didn't sell well. He was a best-selling author whose writing resonated with readers, no matter what he wrote. Moreover, Updike's popularity among the general public was on par with the admiration he received from his peers. Another astonishing aspect of Updike was his prolificacy. Some critics have said that compared to Updike, the word count of any other novelist looked like a trickle compared to Niagara Falls. He authored over 60 books, including 26 novels, a dozen or so short story collections, and half a dozen poetry collections. What's most astounding is that he was willing to accept writing assignments from magazines and newspapers on almost any topic, a rarity among top-tier novelists. This level of productivity was truly inspirational for many aspiring writers. John Updike was born in 1932 in Pennsylvania, right in the midst of the Great Depression. His parents worried about money throughout their lives. His father was a high school math teacher, and his mother worked as a saleswoman at a department store. However, she had a deep love for literature, which had a significant impact on Updike. She was also a talented writer herself, with 10 short stories published in The New Yorker, an impressive feat even J.D. Salinger, whom we often think of as a quintessential New Yorker writer for The Catcher in the Rye, only had 13 pieces published in the magazine. Updike, on the other hand, had a staggering 146. When Updike was a child, some relatives from out of town gave his family a unique gift for the holidays: a 1-year subscription to the New Yorker magazine. Updike was enthralled, and from the age of 12, he aspired to become a cartoonist for the New Yorker. He later attended Harvard, majoring in English, and not only excelled academically but also gained recognition for his talent. Even before graduating, he achieved his childhood dream and became a contributor to The New Yorker. After graduation, he continued to work there. In 1957, just 2.5 years into his job in New York and with the birth of his second child, the whole family moved out of the city to a small town in Massachusetts. Updike always claimed it was because of the growing family, but he also had a desire to write novels, and he felt that his true subject matter was small-town America, not urban life. In 1960, at the age of under 30, John Updike published Rabbit, Run. Subsequently, every decade, Updike would write another installment in the Rabbit series: Rabbit Redux in 1971, Rabbit is Rich in 1981, and Rabbit at Rest in 1990. Through the life of Harry Angstrom, a rather unremarkable American small-town man, these 4 novels chronicled the changes in American society. Because the style of these 4 books is very similar, with the story evolving with the times, in this analysis, I will primarily focus on the story of the first installment, Rabbit, Run, with the developments in the other 3 novels serving as supplementary information. The protagonist is named Harry Angstrom, but he's nicknamed Rabbit because his upper lip trembles when he's anxious. What kind of person is he? First and foremost, he's an ordinary individual who, for the most part, doesn't achieve much in the 4-book series. The peak of his life was during high school when he played basketball. Since then, he has always felt that a mundane life doesn't suit him and has been searching for a vague sense of life's meaning. His moral character isn't great. By today's standards, he could be considered a bad boy. In the first book, he's a young husband who abandons his wife, and from then on, he's constantly adrift, influenced by lust, changing times, family, and fate. In the second book, amidst the chaotic and crazy atmosphere of the 1960s, he watches his family fall apart, using drugs and indulging in debauchery in front of his children. In the third book, His son, deeply scarred by his upbringing, follows in his father's footsteps and runs away when his wife is about to give birth, while Rabbit's main concern is the wife of his golfing buddy. In the fourth book, he leaves his car dealership to his son, who ends up ruining it due to drug addiction. Finally, Rabbit goes to rehab, but not before engaging in a one-night stand with his daughter-in-law, and then skillfully escaping once again. Given the absurdity of this character, who might elicit nothing but contempt from a brief summary, how did John Updike manage to grip readers' interest and sustain it across these 4 novels spanning 30 years? Next, we will answer this question as we delve into the story. At the beginning of the novel, Rabbit, Harry Angstrom, is 26 years old and works at a 10-cent store in a small town, peddling kitchenware to housewives. After work, he sees a group of kids playing 3-on-3 basketball by the roadside, and memories of his high school days when he broke the county basketball scoring record for 2 consecutive years flood back. He impulsively joins in, easily outplaying the kids, and then heads home. His home is an apartment building on a small hill, and his wife, Janice, is pregnant with their second child, sipping cocktails due to varicose veins, and watching children's television featuring Mickey Mouse. They have an argument, and in an attempt to make amends, Rabbit decides to go out and retrieve Janice, along with the car and their son, from her parents' home. As he's about to leave, Janice calls out, "Bring back a pack of cigarettes." Her forgiving tone, her willingness to let bygones be bygones, freezes Rabbit in his tracks. He feels like he's fallen into a trap, ensnared and unable to break free. As Rabbit set out, the evening was turning dark. Updike intricately described the various familiar sights as Rabbit moved through his hometown, while his internal thoughts remained concealed, leaving readers uncertain about his intentions. It's only when he got into his car that we realized Rabbit was starting to run away. First, he drove toward Philadelphia, with 1950s pop songs playing on the radio. When he stopped to refuel, he found himself unable to answer the gas station attendant's questions about his destination or purpose. For the first time, he felt a sense of guilt and fear. The gas station attendant told him, "Before you start out, you gotta know where you're going to get to that place." Rabbit bought a map, with his internal goal being southward. After midnight, probably due to fatigue, Rabbit got lost, staring at the map with its intertwining lines, feeling like he was trapped in a web. He tore up the map and threw it out of the car window, remembering how he always trusted his instincts when dominating the basketball court. So, he followed his instincts and turned the car around, heading north. When he returned near his starting point, it was almost dawn, and Rabbit waited outside the apartment of his high school basketball coach. He hadn't been in contact with the coach for many years. Seeing the coach for the first time, the old man seemed so unfamiliar that it made Rabbit uneasy. Just as he was starting to think he shouldn't have come, the coach greeted him. At that moment, Rabbit's worries disappeared. The novel describes it this way: the coach said the perfect thing at this point. "It's Harry, isn't it? The marvelous Harry Angstrom?" The word perfect here doesn't reflect the narrator's evaluation of the subsequent statement. Rather, it conveys Rabbit's inner state, indicating that he was content with this statement. At his most uncertain moment, an old acquaintance reaffirmed his identity as a basketball superstar, which was precisely what he had sought by coming here. With just one word, perfect, it neither broke the ice nor concealed the protagonist's thoughts, but perfectly revealed everything. After hearing about Rabbit's family situation, the old coach offered him a place to stay, with the condition that they have a proper conversation when he woke up. Rabbit slept until 6 o'clock in the evening and, upon waking up, discovered that the coach had suddenly become an excited and somewhat neurotic person, no longer concerned about Rabbit's wife's well-being. He insisted on dragging his former student to dine with a prostitute he was involved with and said that the prostitute would bring a friend along. That friend was named Ruth, and they met in front of a Chinese restaurant. Ruth and Rabbit both graduated from high school in 1951 and found they had a lot in common, including memories of basketball games between their schools. In this somewhat mysterious exchange, akin to a blind date, you could sense that as the conversation progressed, Rabbit's confidence was gradually increasing. Rabbit learned that Ruth didn't have a job and relied on the kindness of men to make a living. After the four of them finished dinner, Rabbit and Ruth walked together, and he offered to pay her rent. When they returned to Ruth's room, we encountered Updike's renowned descriptions of sexual encounters. When Updike wrote about sex, he did so with a frankness that bordered on being illegal. At that time, obscenity laws in the United States were no joke. After his editor received the first draft of Updike's work, they jokingly told him, "Are you trying to get me thrown in jail?" Updike amiably agreed to make revisions and even hired a lawyer to help with the editing, resulting in the version we see today. Updike's approach to writing about sex could be considered groundbreaking. To quote contemporary British novelist Martin Amis, in previous literary traditions, the description of romantic encounters often stopped at the bedroom door. But Updike not only entered the bedroom, he ventured into the bathroom and even brought a Japanese photography crew with him. In this regard, Updike's attitude aligned with his literary belief that a writer should use boundless curiosity and limitless skill to record everything in the world. When it came to such a significant aspect of life as the relationship between men and women, it was unquestionably necessary to depict it in detail. Regarding the Japanese photography crew, Updike's brilliance in writing about sex lies in a realization that, although criticized by many feminist voices as exhibiting male gaze, nobody understood better than him that real sexual encounters are often more awkward and clumsy than what men fantasize about. In other words, men aren't as skilled as they think they are, and sex isn't as fulfilling as they imagine. Taking the first sexual encounter in the Rabbit tetralogy as an example, there are plenty of stumbles and fumbles. Ruth initially sees it as a business transaction and wants it to end quickly. However, Rabbit is eager to turn the night into a honeymoon. For instance, because his wife had stress-related issues after their first child was born and couldn't relax, he had to give her a massage first. So, he starts by massaging Ruth. When Ruth tells him to stop acting like a lover and finish quickly, he pretends to threaten her playfully, saying, "Maybe I should hit you. Come on. You want to hit me, don't you? Go ahead, hit me." Ruth's response is, "My goodness, is this going to be an all-nighter?" However, overall, this sexual encounter ends satisfactorily for both parties. The next morning, Ruth gets out of bed naked and walks around the room, and Rabbit watches her without objection. At this point, Rabbit feels that this silent acceptance is a compliment and an acknowledgement of him. They have already entered a domestic life together. Rabbit asks Ruth why she likes him, and Ruth says it's because he's still struggling, even though his methods are foolish, he's still fighting. Rabbit is pleased to hear this, and Updike describes it as, pleasure ran through his nerves, making him feel immensely large. Then, before leaving, he inexplicably confesses to Ruth, saying, "Hey, I love you." Ruth's response is, "I must be terribly unlucky to have met you. I don't know how much life you're going to ruin for me." Rabbit emerged from his house and noticed a car following him, with a clergyman inside. It wasn't his own parish priest but rather someone from his wife's family's parish, though he couldn't recall the exact name. Updike vividly described the car slowly tailing him, like a shark arching a noiseless wake, mudguards pushing ripples of air, breaking against Rabbit's knees. Indeed, one of the most significant themes in Updike's work might be religion. It can be said that throughout his life, Updike believed in God in a composed, open-hearted, and sincere manner. On the surface, he wrote about average people in the American heartland, but beneath the prominent themes, he also wrote about how material culture replaced faith, leaving people with a spiritual void. In all 4 books of the Rabbit series, Rabbit is searching for something. Is it youth? Freedom? Wealth? Love? However, once he attains these things, he discovers they can't fill the void in his heart. The priest persuaded Rabbit to get into his car. Their conversation was intriguing, with one particularly noteworthy line being the priest's question, "Why do you think you have to be different from everybody else? Do you think other young couples are happy with everything they do?" Rabbit replied, "I did some things right once. I was the best basketball player there ever was. I really was. When you do something really first-rate, you don't want to settle for second-rate. And this thing my wife and I are doing, my God, it's second-rate." Later, the priest hit the brakes, and there was a clatter in the trunk. The priest mentioned it was his golf clubs, and suddenly invited Rabbit to play golf together someday. Inside, Rabbit knew he should keep his distance, but the thought of playing golf, the safest option for avoiding hunters, led him to accept the offer. Updike's writing about golf is also well known because he himself was an avid golfer. Generally, from a sports perspective, people tend to associate the Rabbit tetralogy with basketball, but its core connection lies more with golf. When Rabbit plays golf with the priest, he experiences a sweet moment. It's akin to a basketball player feeling in the zone when making consecutive shots or a golfer consistently hitting the sweet spot. In these moments, you feel invincible, like everything you do is right. Updike follows Rabbit's mindset, and at this point, the novel's overall narrative enters a smooth phase. For example, Ruth has a long passage of inner thoughts, saying that Rabbit used to feel guilty about his wife, but after playing golf with the priest, he now believes he is Jesus, capable of saving the world. Rabbit himself says that as long as you have the guts to be yourself, others will pay the price for you. Later, Rabbit and Ruth went to a bar with some of Rabbit's high school basketball teammates. During their conversation, Rabbit learned that this teammate was a previous, more intimate customer of Ruth's, shattering his romantic illusion. Back at home, he demanded a highly inappropriate service, and their relationship became irreparable. That night, Rabbit received a call from the priest, saying that Janice was about to give birth. Rabbit prepared to go to the hospital, but Ruth hid under the covers and ignored him. After Rabbit left, Ruth knelt by the toilet and vomited, and it was only then that we realized, based on previous clues, that she was pregnant. The subsequent series of events unexpectedly went smoothly. Rabbit arrived at the hospital, and first the priest said, "I'm proud of you," and Janice's father forgave Rabbit, even saying he could work at his car dealership. Rabbit feared his sins would bring bad luck to the newborn, but the doctor arrived and said it was a girl and everything was fine. Janice herself seemed happy to see Rabbit, and there was a sense of forgiveness. Seeing their daughter, Rabbit also felt affectionate, and they proceeded to live a married life with 2 children. Janice had only been back from the hospital for about 2 weeks when Rabbit, consumed by desire one night, acted foolishly. His actions upset Janice, and she accused him of treating her like a prostitute. Rabbit left again and didn't return until morning. Janice, with her body not yet fully recovered and now taking care of 2 children, had an emotional breakdown and sought solace in alcohol. She received calls from her father and mother, who heard that Rabbit had left again. Surprisingly, her father said that this time he couldn't claim that his daughter had done nothing wrong. Her mother reassured her and said she would come to help. At this point, Updike could have ended the story quietly, but he didn't. The ending of Rabbit Run is one of the most famous in American literary history, not necessarily because it is exceptionally well written, but because it takes readers by surprise. Some even criticized Updike for not being serious enough and creating a melodramatic plot twist to cater to readers. What happens next is that Janice, in her intoxicated state, decided to wash her newborn daughter before her mother arrived. Due to her drunkenness, she accidentally dropped the baby in the bathtub, and perhaps due to the soap suds, by the time she found and retrieved her, the baby had drowned. With Updike's masterful use of language, this section is both appropriate and believable in terms of the narrative. Whether this theme of loss and life and death is appropriately threaded throughout the entire Rabbit series or overly sensationalized is left to the interpretation of each reader. The final scene of the novel takes place at the daughter's funeral, where Rabbit loses control again. He points at Janice and shouts, "What are you all looking at me for? It was her, not me." Then, before anyone can react, Rabbit bolts. Updike mentioned that he didn't plan to write a second Rabbit book at the time, nor did he initially consider it a series. However, over the next decade, he received numerous letters from readers asking where Rabbit had run off to, which eventually led him to write Rabbit Redux. In the subsequent 3 books, we have already introduced the plots at the beginning. It can be said that, if you only look at the story summaries, these Rabbit novels often seem like nothing significant happens, and the characters don't do anything meaningful. However, they reflect the real life of an ordinary person in rural America, and Rabbit's struggles are relatable to many. For instance, in the first book, the conservative atmosphere of an American small town in the 1950s can easily lead to a sense of oppression for a young husband and father, feeling that life lacks prospects. After losing faith, individuals like Rabbit, who have little spiritual life and thinking capacity, still unrealistically pursue something, which might resonate with the inner turmoil of many. Updike himself has said that he aims to explore the universal dilemmas of human nature. In reality, whether you like the protagonist, whether the events relate to you, is not directly related to the quality of the novel. A true novel reader should identify with the novelist, and see how they use the novel to fulfill their artistic ambitions. And Updike's ability to make readers care about such a character is closely related to the excellence of his novels. In American literature, there is an ultimate aspiration, and every novelist wants to write the great American novel, encompassing the entirety of American life. The Rabbit Quartet accomplishes this feat, with each book attempting to encapsulate an era. Rabbit Run covers the Eisenhower era, Rabbit Redux deals with the Nixon era, Rabbit is Rich delves into the Carter era, and Rabbit at Rest explores the Reagan era. Updike paints on a vast canvas, but writing a novel is not about copying the news or creating a timeline. Updike's subtlety matches his ambition. He can capture the smallest changes in the atmosphere of character interactions at any moment. You are constantly discovering how something really is, or how the human heart can be. This kind of revelation is as thrilling as finding out who the murderer is. Moreover, no matter what he is describing, whether it's psychology, objects, or landscapes, all his sentences attempt to provide sensory impact. All expressions are so fresh yet solid, and all details don't show any trace of contrivance. It can be said that he captures the slightest tremors of the era's pulse and dissolves the temperament, atmosphere, texture, joy, and anxiety of that era in his stories. Alright, here's the key point. In fact, all the reviews acknowledge that John Updike's writing is vivid and lifelike. However, right from the beginning of his career, a college professor criticized him, hitting him where it hurt. The professor said, "Behind all this marvelous style, Mr. Updike has a big secret: he has nothing to say." These 5 words haunted Updike throughout his life. In other words, he can describe things but lacks substance, lacks profound ideas. There's a critic named James Wood, considered one of the best in English and American literary criticism for the past 2 or 3 decades. Wood doesn't like Updike, stating that he isn't a great writer. The core of Wood's criticism is that Updike, like most of his male protagonists, lived a comfortable life, wrote about affairs in the first half of his career and nostalgia for affairs in the second half, never experiencing true anxiety or a spiritual crisis. Language is God, writing is faith. The idea that anything, as long as it can be put into words, is fine. How can that be considered the work of a great writer? This line of argument is quite consistent, and it's easy to understand. However, the mainstream of literary criticism today still doesn't agree with this perspective, and Updike's status, even with James Wood's criticisms, doesn't seem to have been significantly affected. Moreover, since we are reading Updike, a good reader should first sincerely understand and empathize with the author before criticizing. So, how can we argue in favor of Updike against the viewpoint represented by James Wood? If we can agree that we hope literature shows us different worlds, different lives, different souls, then we should be able to appreciate the works born of this diversity. Art, including the art of the novel, comes from the heart. What Updike was familiar with and unconsciously compelled to write about was the lives of ordinary people in small towns. Chasing the heavy, the austere, the tragic, and the like is not something an honest artist should do. Can we consider mundane life inherently inferior as artistic material? We shouldn't equate pain with art. In simple terms, the inner world of a middle-aged man having an affair and that of a national hero captured behind enemy lines, not to say which is better suited for artistic creation or which presents a greater writing challenge, they are both infinite in different directions. True art lies in showing how far one can explore human nature using different mediums. We certainly wouldn't demand that art provide comfort and pleasure, But once art can achieve this, we shouldn't belittle it. Updike's artistic belief, as he puts it, is to give the everyday its due. If we truly appreciate Updike's art, we would find this simplicity and perseverance deeply moving. Alright, we've summarized the main points of this session on the Rabbit Quartet. 1. The Rabbit Quartet portrays the life of an ordinary young man in an American small town. Although Rabbit doesn't do anything significant throughout, these 4 novels reflect the real life of an ordinary person in rural America, and Rabbit's struggles are relatable to many. 2. Rabbit's life, though mundane and busy, is portrayed with great fascination by Updike. He wholeheartedly discovers and describes sensory details and psychological changes, making you realize that certain experiences can be conveyed so tangibly through art. 3. Some people criticize Updike for not having significant ideas to convey. However, we tend to agree with the perspective that the beauty of the everyday, the portrayal of all aspects of human existence, including an unsung ordinary person, is not easy to achieve. To write such enduring novels is a top-tier literary accomplishment. 4. Regardless of how one evaluates Updike's literary status, he has left us with an indelible tapestry of post-World War II middle-class American life. Well, that concludes the content for this episode. If you enjoyed my video, please click like, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends. Thank you.